Hey guys, Andrew Swihart here, coming to you once again from the 405 freeway. It's Friday, and I'm excited because I don't have to drive to work the next 2 days, and that's awesome because this drive in traffic does get a little exhausting, and so it's nice to have a break. I want to talk to you guys today about finding your place in the market and squeezing into an already crowded market space. So, I don't know if you guys ever watched the TV show The Prophet. If you haven't watched that show and you're interested in being like an entrepreneur or a self-employed, I would highly recommend watching that television show. It usually comes on right before Shark Tank, and it features a businessman named Marcus Malone. Now, I'm pretty sure that the show is not staged, but it could be, because, I mean, you know, television is still television. I don't know if the show is staged or not. I don't think it is, but I wonder sometimes because, you know, even shows that I didn't think were staged turned out to be staged, and I was always disappointed. But regardless of that, it's still a great show, and it teaches a lot about being an entrepreneur. And like I've said in the past, like being a freelance artist, you are your own entrepreneur, and it's important to see it that way, because if you think you're just going to find a cushy job somewhere and kind of ride it from cradle to grave, I don't know if that still exists. I'm still looking for it. Because if I find it, I might take it, because being an entrepreneur is hard. But, well, probably not. I love being an entrepreneur. My dreams are too big for just some crummy job somewhere where someone just pays me to do a task. I need to be in charge of my destiny. I'm just kind of one of those guys. But anyway, getting back to the show The Prophet with Marcus Malone, they teach a lot of very valuable lessons in being a business owner. And a lot of it has to do with, well, it's all aspects of the business, really. And in different episodes, they discuss different things, you know, just how to treat your employees, how to do deals, how to respect your client, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A very fascinating show. But I wanted to talk about something that really it caught my attention, because I've been dealing with this myself. I have a small company, and we do a lot of bidding, and we work for a lot of big clients, and it's a lot of fun, and I just love it. It's so exciting to grow a business, and that's what we've been doing the last couple of years. Anyway, sorry, getting sidetracked. Getting back to it, it's tough to break into a marketplace that is already carved up. Sort of think of it like if you're trying to break into a marketplace like the car industry, let's say. Well, you know, Ford and Chevy have been around for a long time, and they have a pretty good grasp of how to sell cars. And Toyota has been around for a long time, and they have a really firm grasp on how to sell cars. So how do you break into the marketplace? Well, I've noticed that there are two ways of doing it, okay? There is the way that Tesla has done it. They have a revolutionary technology that works, and people are excited about it. And then the other option is more like how I'm trying to think of a good example here. I don't know if cars are the best example for this. But basically, the idea is to come in as a low-cost leader. Say like Walmart, right? Walmart has destroyed their competition because their prices are cheaper, and even if it's only by a penny. So I want to kind of dissect these two things, because both ways, technology and price, are both ways to break into a marketplace and to expand your market share. And if you don't know what market share is what percentage of the market that actually is, you know, the part that you are participating in. So if you're a large company and you do you have a lot of market share, say 30% of the market share, 40% of the market share. That means that you're doing 40% of the business in that market segment. So like cars, let's say Toyota is the leader. I'm just going to guess and throw out a number here. I have no idea what Toyota's market share is, but let's say it's like 30% or 20%. So out of every car that's purchased, 30% of them, let's say, are Toyota, right? So that's market share. So it's really hard to establish market share, and I think one of the ways that entrepreneurs or people that are just trying to start out, what they do is the way that they evaluate their cost of their product is they'll say, okay, let's say it cost me $100 to make this product, and then it's called cost plus, and then they say, now I know I should be making at least a 50% profit in order to keep my doors open. So now this product is going to be $150, right? And that makes sense. And that's how a lot of people establish their price. That's how I've done it in the past. That's how I learned to do it. So that's one way to establish your price. The problem is that that's not actually the right way to break into a market. That's the wrong way to do it. And most of the time what you end up doing is pricing yourself out of the market. So the better way to do it is to go and see what your competition is selling and how much they're charging for it. So let's say your competition is selling the same exact product. You're charging $150, but they're only charging $140. So it's $10 cheaper. So from the get-go, no one even knows who you are, and you've already set yourself too high, and no one's going to buy your product. You might get a couple sales if you're unique enough, but chances are, unless your product is really worth that much more, which, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. It depends on what the buyer thinks, right? But most buyers these days are extremely cost conscious, and they want to find the best deal. So the way to break into that market is to say, okay, I either need to figure out how to make my product cheaper, or I need to figure out how to, or I need to reduce the amount of money or the profit I'm going to make on this product to get into the market. So say your product costs $100 still, you want to, instead of doing a 50%, raising your prices up 50%, you only raise them 30%, and so now you're only going to make a 30% margin, so now your product is $130. So now you're $10 cheaper, and you can sell your product, and people are going to start to consider you because you're $10 cheaper than the other guy. And I've actually seen this firsthand. I remember when I was a kid, a long time ago, back when we used to buy CDs. Well, I wasn't a kid, I was a teenager. The city where I lived, Santa Clarita, there were a lot of record stores, a lot of them. And there was also other stores that weren't record stores that sold CDs. So everyone was selling CDs in the mid-90s. And the CDs cost about $20 a piece, $16, $20 a piece. Somewhere around there. So Best Buy showed up, and they built this giant store in the middle of town. And so what they did is they decided they were not going to mark up their CDs, and they were going to sell them at cost. So their CDs were only like $8 or $9. The same CD, if you went across the street to an established place or a store, their CDs, were $16 to $20. Within a year, Best Buy had actually swallowed up the entire market and drove everyone out of business. And once everyone was out of business, they raised the price back up to $16 or $20, right? Now that sounds like a jerk move. Well, that's actually, brilliant strategy. And then Best Buy became the only competition in town. They took away all the market share, and they became the market share leader. So you see what they did there. That's how they did it. Now let's say you are selling a product, and you learn how that you're really good at what you do, and you learn how to do it efficiently quickly, and then you allow yourself to take a bit of a loss on it. That way you establish yourself into the marketplace. People want to work with you because, oh, this guy's a little bit cheaper. And then as you build relationships with your clients and they start to like you as a person and they understand you and they get you and they like you, then you start to raise your price a little bit so you can finally start to make, a profit. And so that's one way to break into a market. The other way to break into a market, which happens all the time, constantly, all around us. I mean, you see, companies like Microsoft and Apple and BlackBerry kind of is a good example of losing market share through technology. Using technology. One of my earlier audio casts, I talked about how Disney, although he did a great job telling stories, and he really focused on technology. And if you want to watch that one, I would check that one out. I don't remember what I called it. Something to do with taking risks in business. But he was really focused on technology. And looking back, a lot of people don't realize that because at the time his stuff was new and exciting and different, and he was telling stories using sound that no one had done before and color and these unique cameras and optics, and he invented ways, is Imagineering. They're always coming up with new ways of telling a story. So there's also the technology. Now you might say, well, I'm not going to go out and invent a new technology. I get that. You don't have to invent the new technology, but if there's a new technology on the horizon that people are excited about, something that's been all the buzz lately is Oculus Rift the last couple of years, and it seems like everyone and their brother at all these companies has some kind of 360 camera, and you could put your phone in front of your face in like a holder, and it's like an Oculus Rift, and everyone's coming out with products now trying to compete with that, and augmented reality. And there's all these new companies that just exploded onto the scene in the last 5 to 10 years that use these kind of gimmicky and goofy technologies. Now, are these technologies any good? Well, that's, everyone has their own opinion on that. I personally think that they're interesting. Some of them make me kind of sick when I use them, but I get why people are excited about them. But that's an example of using a new and unique technology. My company, we actually are promoting a couple of those types of technologies, as well as other ones that are still in the works, and we're doing some partnerships with some big companies, so I don't want to let on what it is, but when the time is right, I will. But we're always looking at new ways of telling the same old story, because technology is exciting and interesting, and you could show up, like imagine trying to break into the 1800s carriage industry. That's very well established. I mean, what do? Do you make carriages with that like everyone else is doing, or do you put a car engine inside of a carriage and turn it into a car? I mean, technology disrupts the marketplace. It destroys the old class and brings in a new class of artisans, of creators, of entrepreneurs, of businessmen. So if you can find a technology and you can figure out how to apply it to what you're already doing, that's a great way to break into a market. And what's good about that is you can charge a premium. You don't have to lower your price. You can actually charge a premium because you're the only guy using it. And if they want to be an early adapter, like a lot of businessmen do, then that's the way to do it. So these are some tips. Now you're saying, hey, Andrew, I'm just an artist. I just want to, work in the movie industry. What does this have to do with me? Why me? Well, it's very applicable because you want to be on the cutting edge. You want to be using the best stuff. You want to be using the latest and greatest equipment. The first film job I ever got working in film, I had done a lot of research into a thing called, at the time, well, it's still called this, but it was called photogrammetry. And basically, it was this product that nobody was using. I just kind of thought it was really neat and interesting. And you would go out and take photographs. This is like 2004, 2005. You would go out and take photographs, and then you would take this this computer program, and you would stitch those photographs into 3D objects and then bake the textures out. Well, at the time, no one was doing that stuff. I mean, now it's really commonplace to see that. There's even apps on your phone where you walk around something and it takes pictures and it turns it into a 3D object. But at the time, that was really unique. And so I was out photographing buildings and making these super realistic buildings. Other people were like, you know, kind of like modeling them off a photo and then painting it and everything. But my stuff had all the organic kind of like quirkiness that real buildings have, and it had this photoreal texture, and I was shooting high dynamic range, and it was really, really high quality, and it just looked real, you know. And I met with I forget who I met with first, but I ended up getting called on. A guy that I knew what I was doing, and they were working on a movie called 2012 for Roland Emmerich. And so the head CG supervisors wanted me to, a friend of mine told them about me and what I was doing, because they needed really realistic buildings in the movie 2012. Because they all crumble and crash and fall. And so I got called in there to show them how I made super realistic buildings. And I was like, oh, I just used this program, you know. They're like, oh, you shoot HDR? Yeah. And at the time, you know, shooting bracketed HDR was kind of a novelty as well. And so I got called in there, and I showed off my work, and they were really impressed. They're like, this is exactly what we need for this movie. And I said, great. I said, when do I start? And they said, can you start Monday? And the next thing you knew, I was working with an Oscar-winning artist, Oscar-winning CG supervisor, and some other great guys. I'm not going to name their names, but they know who they are. Really, just the most talented people and the greatest team. And I got to meet all the people in the industry that I still work with today, a lot of them, and friends of mine that I cherish from that experience. I ended up working on the movie 2012. I ended up flying all over LA, photographing buildings, flying all over Vegas, photographing buildings from helicopters, using all these new techniques. And it was because I knew how to use this tool that this company really, really needed. And so that's one way to break into a market segment, and to capture a market segment is you have this unique tool that nobody else has, or you know how to do something unique and special. Now, did everybody need this tool? No. This particular company did, but those opportunities will find you out, you know. I mean, there's a million guys out there who want to be freelance artists. What are you bringing to the table that's special? What are you bringing to the table that's unique? Maybe your price is cheap, you know. Maybe you bring a new technology. It just depends on you. Maybe you do both, you know. My company, we do both, right? We bring some really cool technologies to the table, and we also have really cost-effective ways of doing it, and we're extremely competitive, and our competitors get freaked out when we show up because they know that we're going to come swinging, you know, and the companies that we do bids for and the companies that we work with love us because we provide them that service. So hope this was helpful. Anyway, if you want to check out my personal website, andyswy.com. If you want to check out my company, swihartstudios.com. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys have a great day. Talk soon. Bye-bye.